This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, with agriculture broadcaster Orion Samuelson and yours truly, Max Armstrong, and featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone.
As summer gets underway, the World Pork Expo makes its return to Des Moines. Hello folks, welcome to This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson here behind the desk, but Max Armstrong is joining us as well as we dig in to some of the things that are happening in agriculture. One of the headlines, of course, as we approach this next week is the return of the World Pork Expo. Max had a chance to sit down with Jen Sorensen and talk about what to expect with this year's expo.
Well, Mike, I know you're excited about being in Des Moines for the World Pork Expo next week. There will be a lot of producers there from around the world who haven't seen each other for years, I guess. They haven't had a pork expo for a while, and they're meeting in a rather upbeat economy. Jen Sorensen, president of the National Pork Producers Council, joins us here. Yeah, your industry often is smiling. I mean, quite often we see good prices, then the industry expands, maybe overdoes it a little bit, prices slip back, you adjust again. Historically, over the years, the pork producers have done pretty well, haven't they?
That's right. We're a resilient group as pork producers and couldn't be more excited to be heading into the World Pork Expo, especially with strong pork demand with our export markets and here domestically as well. You know, our grain prices are a little bit higher and we're working through those things, but we're pretty optimistic and happy right now, especially to be having a in-person World Pork Expo, Max.
Yeah, there are times when a corn market this high would really cast a pall over the pork industry. But fortunately, as you say, that global demand has been strong along with the domestic demand, and that's keeping that price for the producer up there.
That's right. You know, we'll be having a lot more discussion next week about some of the challenges in the pork industry and some of our learnings from this past year as well at the World Pork Expo. And again, couldn't be more excited to be face-to-face in person in Des Moines at the Iowa State Fairgrounds, you know, talking, enjoying that fellowship, enjoying that camaraderie, listening to speakers, working with new suppliers and vendors, and just how we overall get better and more resilient as a U.S. pork industry, learning from the challenges that we're having and identifying those opportunities we have in front of us.
Thinking back over the years, there have been so many times that the industry has been concerned about the packing capacity. I know for many years there just wasn't enough capacity. Then we saw a significant expansion of pork facilities in the United States. I think of places like Iowa and North Carolina, for example, other states too. Once again now, because of a court decision, you're worried about packing plant capabilities, aren't you?
We really are. Packing plant capacity is so critical for pork producers. And anytime we're at a risk of losing capacity, it's going to be a problem. This particular court ruling would slow down the line speeds of 6 plants here in the U.S. Will have a regional impact. Dermot Hayes says overall we'll lose about 2.5% of our packing capacity, which while that seems small, some plants will lose up to 20 and 25%. So we'll see regional impact and specific segments, quite frankly, of producers will be hurt. And we're sad to say that most likely small producers will be the highest and disproportionately impacted by this ruling.
The USDA had previously said, if I'm not mistaken, that yes, these plants should be operating at this capacity, that the safety, the food safety is being looked after there, the worker safety is being cared for. There had been a favorable judgment from the USDA in this regard, correct?
Correct. You know, this is an opportunity for all of us to come together at you know, the unions, the packing plants, the USDA and the U.S. pork industry, because I don't think anyone ever anticipated that this would be taken out on small hog farmers or any hog farmers in particular. So I think there's an opportunity to come together, have a conversation and work through this issue together so we don't put small farmers at risk of losing contracts.
Mr. Pierce will be wandering around Pork Expo, and he may be eating extra pork because I've authorized him to have my share. So don't stop him in his tracks if you see him with sauce all over his chin, okay?
You would never.
Thank you, Jen. We appreciate it. You have a great Pork Expo in the week ahead.
Thanks, Max.
Jen Sorensen, she's president of the National Pork Producers Council, grew up in a hog operation in eastern Iowa, has spent the past decade or so at Iowa Select Farms.
Well, thank you, Max. I am looking forward to eating your share of pork at the World Pork Expo next week. But I tell you what, those pigs certainly like eating their fair share of soybean meal. And we've got some thoughts on that market to help us understand what is going on in the world of the futures markets. Dwayne Bussey from Bolt Marketing is joining us. And Dwayne, looking ahead to the rest of this summer for folks that need to secure bean meal, what are your thoughts?
I'd be a little nervous. The last couple crush reports, the NOPA crush report and the USDA report, showed that crush was down a little bit year over year. Now the talk is that plants are just backing off, maintenance issues, things like that. I think what the true issue is, it's hard to find raw soybeans, to be honest with you. I've been a bull in the soybean market for a while. I think we're running out. So if you want the meal for summer, what I'm hearing is you have to guarantee the crush plants that you'll deliver some soybeans to them. That's kind of the only way you can contract meal for those summer months. So feed concerns are going to be an issue for hog producers this summer.
Yeah, they certainly are. And, we've spent a lot of time over the past several months talking about the corn market as that rally has really gobbled up a lot of the spotlight. But Dwayne, you mentioned you've been a bean bull for a while. The bean supply situation is still dire heading into the summer of 2021.
It sure is, and it's been that way for quite some time. Remember, USDA knocked our ending stock for that old crop down to 120 million bushels. Remember, they don't want to go below that 120. They're calling that pipeline supply. So they've even actually had to back off the residual usage to keep us at 120. And they also had to increase imports to 35 million bushels, which, to be honest, Mike, I'm fine with that as long as we rally the market enough to buy some beans from Brazil and bring them in. 1650 probably did that. The pullback, we're probably not bringing any more beans in. So yeah, I'm a soybean bull once again, thinking we have to jack this up just to have enough beans to get through this summer.
Well, and as we look ahead to this new crop scenario, Dwayne, you're in South Dakota, North Dakota, of course, suffering from drought. Cass County, North Dakota, the largest soybean producing county in the country. That drought keeps moving eastward into that territory. What are you hearing from your friends in North Dakota, and what should growers be doing to market their new crop soybeans?
Oh, yeah, boy, those are great questions. First off, the drought in North Dakota. Poor North Dakota. A couple of years ago, they had massive flooding, a lot of prevent plant, and then it just shut off, just like a faucet. And that's fine because they had a lot of prevent plant acres the last couple of years that are back into production now. So they planted, they're feeling good about their farm. And then also now they're hit with massive drought and nasty winds, and the corn's getting beat by wind and blowing dirt. And then we had frost on Friday, Mike, and I even had it down on my farm. It was completely white on the grass. The frost damage is fairly minimal and patchy from what I'm understanding, but the drought situation is so bad in North Dakota that I can even say early June that it's going to be very hard to have trend line yields up there. So what those producers should probably do is probably look at more like a put option strategy. Everyone's worried if they're going to raise enough crop or not. So put options would be what I would suggest for them.
A good way to protect that downside risk. Dwayne, as you take a look at the good to excellent ratings in the corn crop, of course, North Dakota, that's going to be an anchor on these ratings as we go throughout the summer. As far as the crop is setting up right now with regard to corn, Dwayne, is anything too surprising?
No, not really. I don't think so. I think the surprise might come next week and the week after when the crop conditions, which remember are the national average, right, actually increase a little bit. In South Dakota, after those cold temps we had, our corn needed some heat. And that's what I heard from guys in Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Minnesota as well. We just needed heat. So I actually think that heat that we're getting this past week is going to give corn that dark green color and push it into the excellent category instead of the fair. So you'll probably see the national index move up 1 or 2% next week. We're going to be approaching close to 80%, which would really be bearish and signal above a trend line yield. but it's all about weather, Mike, right? I mean, if we're got a hot, dry forecast, that crop condition won't matter too much.
Absolutely. And there's so much yet to come as we discuss this corn crop. We'll be back after the break for more with Dwayne Bussey talking about what to expect in the corn market, what to expect with wheat, and of course, we've got to take a look at what's going on in the livestock markets for our friends in livestock production. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Tips, videos, how-tos, and more. If it has to do with ag tech, you'll find it in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased one-stop resource. And we're back talking markets with Dwayne Bussey of Bolt Marketing. Dwayne, we talked about the corn market a little bit, but one of the ongoing stories continues to be that export demand. Continue to see another strong week of export sales. Looking out around the world, this global grain deficit certainly seems to be persisting into summer.
It sure does, and you probably got to start talking about the Brazil second crop of corn, right? Some are saying now the worst drought they've had in 90 years, so obviously devastating down there. And remember, that corn was planted late. That's why the weather was that much more important, and sure enough, they just had the worst case scenario. So we're talking about their crop size. I was fairly comfortable calling them around 95 million metric ton, but some now pulling it below 90 million metric ton. If that's the truth, we're probably going to have about 400 million bushels used up from the U.S. now, or an increase in demand, I should say. So, yeah, that keeps the bull story going. China was in there still buying old crop corn from us. They're not canceling that. They're buying new crop, past couple weeks. Yeah, demand is for real, isn't it?
It certainly is. Dwayne, watching that South American crop, obviously we don't have eyes and ears necessarily on the ground in South America. We're taking our cues from the markets. What timeline should farmers be watching? When are we going to know just how dry and small that Brazilian crop might be this summer?
I'd say we're already pricing it in, Mike. That's the job of the futures market, is to always look so far out there. I mean, we've had some experts go as low as 79, 80 million metric ton for that crop. And you always got to have those extremes. So I would kind of settle into it's going to be around a 90 million metric ton crop. And demand is going to increase around that 400 million bushels I mentioned. So, but I also think that's already priced in the market, Mike. So I think we can move forward with knowing what the crop size is in South America.
Well, one of the things we've seen, Dwayne, as we've priced this uncertainty into the corn market is more and more farmers, particularly livestock producers, working wheat into their feed ration. Wheat market has certainly been volatile. Do you have any thoughts for wheat as we head into this summer?
Yeah, as far as feed wheat, I love what we're seeing. Wheat, I've always mentioned we're 1 or 2 years away from a bullish market. We just had too much old crop supplies. But now with corn prices the way they are and wheat to where it is, we've seen wheat feeding increase sharply. But wheat, it's got a different story too. We got a weather issue in North Dakota, like we mentioned in the last segment. Spring wheat crop is pretty tough. If we don't get a rain soon in North Dakota, that crop was definitely going to be below a trend. But it's like drought. It's spotty. I've got guys with the best looking wheat crop they've ever had too, in Minnesota. So we'll have some wheat, but it's not going to be a bumper crop at all up here.
All right. Well, Dwayne, while we got you on the line, I know, of course, you work with a lot of folks in the cattle industry in South Dakota and across the country. This past week has been another frustrating week for cattle producers. This past weekend, we heard JBS was hacked, shut down their plants, caused some volatility in the markets when trading reopened earlier this week. Dwayne, when is this cattle market going to turn around?
I don't know. I keep coming on and talking to you in different shows and saying that I'm bullish cattle and eventually it should go higher, right? And eventually I think I'll be right. The box beef keeps climbing higher, right? And there's definitely some talk and some litigation that might go on as far as attacking the packers and the profits they keep. But I'm still going to go with cutouts as high as they are, inflation fears out there. The cattle market should follow too. And I think we're going to see that. Cash cattle starting to trade a little bit higher this week, and that's good. Now slaughter is going to be behind because the JBS closing, like you mentioned, for even a day. And that was the problem before, is the cattle are backed up and a little overweight. But watch these temps here too. I'm going to be around 90 degrees to 100 degrees in the plains where some of the feedlots are. That'll slow some weight gain down. If that continues into the summer, you'll see those weights disappear. And when those weights disappear, Mike, that's when this cattle market can really take off. That's a great point, Dwayne. We need weights to come down on the farms, and we need slaughter pace to accelerate. Hopefully these prices will make that happen. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we need. Fantastic. Well, folks, that's Dwayne Bussey from Bolt Marketing out of Britain, South Dakota. Dwayne, we appreciate your insight. Hey, thanks for having me.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform. Combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability.
With crops emerging across the Corn Belt, a lot of farmers are turning their focus to that post-emerge spray. Well, there's some new technology out there that makes driving down those rows just a little bit easier. Chad has an update on this week's Ag Tech Talk.
Are you spending any time following rows this spring? Hi, everyone. I'm Chad Colby, and last weekend I did just that. A good friend called me and asked me if I would give him a hand doing some spraying. And what I was excited about is he had a new vision camera system for his RoGator, and he wanted me to calibrate it and get it all running, and I jumped at the chance. It's a really great new tool to add on top of the guidance systems we've had. Now you can see right here the actual view from the camera. It's using that camera to keep the machine on the row. Now, it'll even handle some slope up to about 8 degrees, and even some turns were not a problem. I was pretty impressed with that. And there's no question it's really beneficial for the operator. It takes a lot of that fatigue off, and certainly your productivity is going to be a lot higher. As far as what do you add to the physical machine, not much. You can see right there above the fender, actually the vision system. This system has 2 cameras mounted right there. It's pretty easy to put on, and it took me probably 20 minutes of getting it calibrated, and it worked really well. Now, John Deere has had a similar system in their row crop sprayers for years, but they added now a system to go on your row crop tractor. And for those of you that are going to do some row crop spraying or side dressing coming up, what an amazing addition of technology to do kind of the same thing to make you more efficient, and it even handles it at pretty good speeds. As far as the technology goes, you can see in front of the Starfire receiver, you can see the camera body up there. That's the only thing you have to add. The nice part about both of these systems, they're not going to break the bank. They're both going to be a little under $10,000, depending on what other unlocks you might need to go with it. And after being around both of these systems and seeing them over the last several years as they've matured, I would tell you, it's a great piece of technology you'll be happy you invested in. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
I think that technology is fascinating. As somebody who is very guilty of running down rows, that looks like that could save me some heartache. Well, folks, don't go away. When we return, we'll take a look at the half century of progress coming back this summer. Thanks for joining us here on This Week in Agribusiness. As we came through 2020, we had a lot of folks who weren't able to get out and meet with the people we typically meet with at farm events and meetings across the country. Well, 2021 is going to change that. The half century of progress is coming back in August of this year. It's a great time to catch up with friends you haven't seen in a while, like Max with his friend Dave Gentry.
Oh, Mike, you bet. We are looking forward to what's happening at the end of August. Everything looks like it's green lights for the half century of progress 2021. And Dave Gentry joins us. Dave helps wake up the folks in Champaign, Illinois every morning on DWS Radio. And I think you've been to just about every half century show, haven't you?
Every one of them.
Think of the pent-up excitement. Think of, after
I am. We've been parked inside for months around here, and everybody's really getting antsy to get out and do something. So this is ideal.
Now, men and women have had 2 years to work in their shops, to pull tractors out of fence rows, cut trees out of tractors, and to fix them up. And so many people, as you know, have that one goal in mind: get it to Rantoul, Illinois.
That's correct. And I've got to get mine gathered up and get it ready to go up there too. So we've got a lot to do.
You know, a good friend of mine, Charlie McCarty, who you know was at the show a couple of years ago, and he looked around and he said, I think this is the happiest place on the planet.
That's probably true.
You were the guy, I think, who dubbed it the Disney World of Agriculture.
That's right.
There's so much going on there.
There really is, and it's going to be a little different this year. We're going to use a different building for part of it, but for storage and things like that, we're still going to do everything out in front of Hangar 2, the way I understand it. So that's going to be good. A lot of things are going to be there, and it's just going to be a lot of action up at the old Rantoul Air Base, as we call it.
That old air base affords us a great location. First of all, it's expansive. There is the room for the field demonstrations. There's room for people to get out and wander and to really see what's going on. But there are so many things happening at one time. It really is kind of a three-ring circus.
It really is. And when Darius was around, it was indeed a three-ring circus. I used to call him the P.T. Barnum of Penfield for a reason.
Yeah, the late Mr. Harms, who farmed in the area, one of several farmers working together. That's one thing that I really enjoy about this show. These are actual producers, joined by some others who really make it happen out there at Rantoul each year.
As you get closer to retirement, too, they find more and more things for you to do, so it eases the transition.
There are people from all walks of life who come to this show. There's a surgeon from Chicago who drives down by himself. I've seen him there. He's come up to talk to me. There are people to milk cows in the state of Maine. There are industrialists who come from California. They're all drawn to this old equipment to see it work in the field.
Yeah. Everybody's got an old tractor in the family, something like that grandpa had or dad had, or it's still in the family. And they want to recreate that and get that out there and use it.
The one thing I've noticed too, David, it becomes an educational experience for families who attend. Quite often you'll see 3 generations riding right there on the same utility vehicle to see the show.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You'll see some kind of unique designs too on extra seats and things like that on some of these tractors too. So, and on some of the things they use to go around the golf cart, what's supposed to be like a golf cart for a lot of these folks. They put some extra things on there. It's kind of fun to see.
Yeah, they do trick these things out a little bit in their shops, and some will do that to their tractors. You know, there's the fellow who comes from many miles away every year with the old case, I think it's a Case VAC with the chicken roost on it, and he puts the rubber chickens on it.
Yeah, he does. It's always there.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you there. I think you'll be joining me, hopefully on Saturday afternoon. We'll be doing a stage show there at the Half Century of Progress. I believe that would be the 28th of August. The show opens on the 26th and runs through the 29th.
I've been tuning up, ready to sing. So, you know, whatever you need during the show is fine.
We may need to adjust that schedule a little bit.
That's what I thought.
We'll see you along the way. Have a good summer.
Okay, Max.
Dave Gentry on the radio at DWS, 1400 on the dial, Champaign, Illinois. One of the guys who really helps it make it happen, we should say, at the Half Century of Progress.
Well, thank you, Max. It is fun to get excited about the Half Century of Progress, and I know at a farm show you like to see a cloud of dust as the work is getting done, but Greg,
yes,
these farmers could use a shot of rain, particularly in the northern plains.
Yeah, way too dusty up there, and I tell you, coming off 100-degree heat over parts of the Dakotas as well. Matter of fact, let's take a look at that drought monitor coming out late last week, and there it is. Very little significant change, by the way, into the northern Corn Belt areas from Michigan into northern Iowa. There is the bullseye up across the Dakotas. Little change across the west and southwestern part of the country. The plains better. Sections of the central and southern Corn Belt coming off recent rain better. Note the expanding dryness issues as well in the Carolinas and southern mid-Atlantic region.
Well, that's the thing, Greg. As you look at that southeast area, as we get into summer, tropical moisture starts to pick up. Are they going to get some moisture?
Yeah, they should see some drought improvement there. If you were to pencil in a line from about Michigan to Texas and points east, I think we'll see generally okay moisture and probably several remnant systems to come in to that part of the country. The issues are playing out through Michigan, more so Wisconsin, northern Illinois, points north and west as we get deeper into the summertime season around here as well. So anticipating an expanding dryness and drought-ridden weather pattern. Same with the central and southern plains despite recent improvement. At least the monsoon season is setting here the next week to 10 days. Moisture chances there.
So coming all across the southwest?
Yeah, yes, so pretty robust, and so that will generate some localized drought improvement.
All right, things to watch for. We'll be back for more with Greg Solier. Folks, stay with us on This Week in Agribusiness.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Now, agriculture is a very generous industry. We are rooted in states and in small towns, and a lot of farmers like to give back to those communities. Well, Max introduces us to a huge fundraising event happening in Nebraska.
Mike, have you heard of the Cattlemen's Ball in Nebraska? Oh, we've experienced it firsthand about a decade ago. That event that is held every year somewhere in the state of Nebraska is a magnificent fundraiser. It's a big party out in the field is what it is. Harry Kenobi joins us, longtime friend of ours, Cattlemen in Nebraska, who hosted that show 10 years ago, wasn't it, Harry?
A group of women in the Sandhills in Nebraska started it in about 1990 in a small scale, and they called it the Cattle Barons Ball. And it changed over to the Cattlemen's Ball, and we had the record price of $1,495,000 we raised. There was 1 year after that they have raised more of that, but since 1998 overall they raised about $15 million. 90% of the money goes to the Buffett Cancer Center in Omaha, and the other 10% is given to communities around us, and that's decided by the host family on how much the towns get, the rescue squad and fire departments and hospitals get.
Well, I've noticed, Orion and I noticed when we were there, that everybody gets shaken down for money. I don't care who you are, you pay your way in, pay for that meal, and everybody just has a great time. What a tremendous event it is.
Yeah. Well, we called it, it was interesting, they always called it giving cancer a boot. And I said, if we're going to have it at our place, I got a lot of tractors and plows, we're going to have it, call it plowing cancer under. And an advertising man told me, he said, it'll never fly. Well, we made the record price of $1,495,000, calling it plowing cancer under.
I remember the program. I remember that picture of the plow on the front. I think it was a Brown program, if I'm not mistaken, but it was a wonderful event. I just want to, while I have you on here this weekend, I would just have to circle back a little bit about the packing industry concerns in the industry. You know, I was amazed the other day when they had the meeting, got everybody together, groups are coming together, talking together for the first time, it seems like. Are we making some inroads here and getting something done about this challenge for those of you who produce beef cattle?
Well, the problem we've had, we just can't get our cattle harvested, our backlog. So I'm comparing the harvest of cattle to 2019. And we were about 130,000 behind a month ago. And as of last Friday, we got within 42,000. Now, with the delayed harvest that we're having on this week on Monday, we're going to fall back probably 30 to 40,000 again. But sooner or later, we're going to be catching up with that. And we did that by the packers paying $3 an hour more to the workforce. And it's slowly coming, but it's going to be hard for us to get more money for the cattle until we can get the backlog of the cattle. And I expect that to happen by the 1st of August for sure.
Take care. Thank you. Harry Kenobi, Cattlemen in Nebraska, West Point, Nebraska, joining us here. Now, agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier brings us his farm weather forecast for the nation for the week ahead. It's presented by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, whether or not.
Well, it's time to talk weather. We've got Greg Solier here, and Greg, across the Pacific Northwest, man, they were hot last week.
Yeah.
You got any breaks in the forecast for them?
We do. Not much moisture to speak of. It is that time of the year where moisture is certainly at a premium. Maybe a couple of showers and thunderstorms and scattered coverage. More substantially cooler air and a trough moving inland for the beginning part of the week. Probably thunderstorm potential greatest through Montana, across the Dakotas, coming off some of that triple-digit heat. Of course, the bullseye on some of this drought area. This drought condition continues around the Bismarck area and northward. Let's not forget about the southern Canadian prairie and those spring rains there. Even a stray shower as far south as Redding and Red Bluff. High pressure builds on in for the late portion of the week. Seasonal warmth, no organized moisture. Weather system is a weak one offshore here for the late portion of the week. We do see the potential for a couple of thunderstorm clusters lined up out of Big Sky country along the front side of this ridge, all the way down in through parts of Nebraska, back into seasonal temperatures, a better feel for outdoor endeavors into the Dakotas and Canadian prairie later on into the week. Across the southwestern sections of the country, still no sign of the monsoon setting up now. We're probably about 10 days to 2 weeks out from getting into that. Couple of thunderstorms into the high plains areas. Here's some of the warmth here. Seasonal heat across Arizona and the hot stuff, but a cold front of the move across the valleys of California. By the way, the Sierra snowmelt is done. There's nothing else to work with, so we need to watch that potential for increased dryness, drought, and certainly fires as we get into the monsoon season. Quiet high pressure with heat over the southwestern part of the country. Errant thunderstorm back across the plains. Warmth as far north as the Black Hills.
Well, Greg, across the Corn Belt, a lot of farmers are keeping their eye on the sky, watching for some moisture. You got any in the outlook?
And we had some about a week to 10 days ago over the Memorial Day holiday weekend, which was heavy and severe in this part of the country. Otherwise, it is heat and humidity and a midsummer feel. Some of that triple-digit stuff right here. 90-degree air across the southern Great Lakes region. We do see a front, the first again of two wet weather systems here for the remainder of the month into the high plains areas that will make its way eastbound with showers and thunderstorms over the western Corn Belt, Midwest with time with more heat and humidity. Just a modest cool down, but dry time back behind that front for the late portion of the week. Down through Texas, upper air weather system, a bit unusual, but this may be the trajectory of systems off the Gulf, making to the southern plains and up across the Ohio. So additional rainfall here. The heat focused over the southwestern part of the country as well, with very high humidity and dew points, with drier air settling on in across much of the plains, central and southern areas. More heat here. The shower and thunderstorm activity scattered across the lower Mississippi Valley and Delta region over a very wet area of the country.
Now working our way to the East Coast, Greg, of course, a lot of farmers want to get to the field, do some of that summertime work. They're going to have some opportunity? Yeah,
at least we made some good progress on corn and soybean planting, 95 to 85% respectively. There's warmth, there's humidity. It's almost a July feel, and thunderstorm clusters as well lined up along this boundary early to middle parts of the week. We need moisture here into the northeast of New England. This will be a slow-moving boundary, and by the late portion of the week, it's no farther east than the northeast of New England, with rain here back into lower humidity, seasonal warmth. If you get some rainfall and soil moisture is adequate, some pretty good crop growing conditions anticipated late portion of the week. A busy weather pattern over this part of the country with showers and thunderstorms continuing on. Very wet and saturated soils all the way down to the Gulf Coast area. The warmth and the scattered moisture too is needed into the Carolinas, and we do see opportunities for some rainfall as a system blows on by but stalls on out in this area, with scattered showers and thunderstorms expected across the Delta region and the southeastern portions of the country late in the week.
Now, Greg Soye is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country. Presented by Pivot Bio Proven. Visit pivotbio.com to find a representative near you.
Well, we're still talking weather with Greg, and we've talked a lot about the drought and dryness across the country. In the week ahead, Greg, what's your moisture precipitation outlook?
Well, not drought ending. Some drought relief, though, is expected over some of these worst drought areas of the western and northwestern Corn Belt, and the potential with a couple of fronts and systems on the move at a half to maybe one, some localized 2-inch downpours that will include a good chunk of the southern Canadian prairie. Again, there'll be two of these systems to come on by for the remainder of the month of June, and severe weather prospects as well. Maybe some rainfall, drenching variety later in the week here down through Florida and the mid-Atlantic regions. Scattered, spotty, quarter to half inch if we're lucky at most across the Pacific Northwest.
And now, Greg, the next week takes us into the first full day of summer. The temps start to look summery?
Oh, they certainly are well underway, and kind of a displacement of that hot ridge, which is typically here, but it's more so positioned through the upper Midwest, southern Canadian prairie. Any way you want to slice it, dice it, look at the heat above average southwest part of the country, much of the heartland into the northeast of New England, down through the Carolinas. Cloudiness, moisture in the ground that evaporates out, makes clouds of more moisture, hence keeping temperatures below average across the deep south. A little troughiness and a drop off in temperatures for the Pacific Northwest and the valleys of California. Missouri on westward, not much going on. No drought relief anticipated. Some improvement. Here's the second system that we talked about for the month of June, making its way through the eastern Corn Belt, down through Dixie and the Delta region. And yeah, it's that time of the year to start tracking that is some of these tropical weather systems. It will be a busy one for the southeastern sections of the country, the tropical Atlantic as well.
All right, Greg, how about the next week, June 21st?
As for temperatures, as we see it right now, wide and expansive, the hot ridge, and beginning to build a little farther to the north as well. So that's more sinking air, more heat, lots of readings above average into the frequent low to mid 90 and upper 90 to near 100-degree range, probably centered over some of the worst drought areas of the northern plains. Warm through the California region. region, mid-Atlantic region, the northeast of New England. Again, clouds and some moisture keeping temperatures below average across the deep south and southeastern sections of the country. Here it is. And by the way, the monsoon season finally kicks in over the southwest. Tropical systems here across the Gulf of the western Atlantic. So a busy weather pattern here, much needed. But look at the dry time across much of the heartland.
Now, your final week of forecast takes us to Independence Day, 4th of July. Greg, what are you seeing?
Well, from a temperature standpoint, here it is warm back across the western states in through the upper Midwest, much of the central and a northern Corn Belt. Temperatures about normal across the southwestern sections of the country. Here is the precip active in the southwest, deep south. Drought continues on through the upper Midwest.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Was it the most popular tractor that John Deere ever made? Well, I don't know, but a lot of people love their 4020s. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Store Lock Tool Cabinets. It is remarkable quality. You hear me talk about it? They are in a league of their own with Store Lock cabinets. Check them out on the website, storelock.com. Jeff Lanou, who is with Store Lock, by the way, loves his John Deere equipment, and this is his. It's a 1964 John Deere 4020. You know, they made those tractors for a decade. They started making the 4020 in 1963, and I believe they made close to 185,000 of them. What was it, 75% of them, 80% of them were diesel? This is a diesel. Jeff Lanou near Kankakee, Illinois, has this one, and he works it. He gets it out and does some tillage work with his 4020. Jeff is one of those guys with Store Lock, and they're going to be out at the various shows coming up in the weeks ahead where you'll be able to take a look at that Store Lock quality. World Pork Expo is coming up in Des Moines. The Spring Shootout Truck and Tractor Pull in Ohio, the Classic Green Show in Ohio, the Red Power Roundup, DuQuoin, Illinois. Those are among the places where the folks from Store Lock will be. We always know where to find Mark Stock. He's here each weekend with a rundown of what they're selling at Big Iron Auctions.
Well, Max, we're getting geared up to have a big sale here on June the 9th. 1,180 items from 23 different states, and the used farm machinery market is extremely well right now. We've got new record high prices established every week on these older, low-houred packages of equipment. Check out Holcomb Farms, LLC out of Julesburg, Colorado. They've got a 2014 Case IH 7130 combine with only 416 separator hours. They also have two Cat Challenger 55 track tractors, one with only 1,074 hours. They got a Cat Challenger MT 765 track tractor as well that will sell. Timberline LLC out of Buffalo, Wyoming will sell 112 items. They've got a Gale 383Z mini excavator. They've also got a 2007 Kenworth W900 semi-truck tractor. They've got a Bobcat S550 skid steer, a Boxer 530 stand-on skid loader with attachments. They've also got a 2005 Titan Classic horse trailer with a tack room and a Land Pride 606 no-till drill. Those items all selling for Timberline LLC out of Buffalo, Wyoming. Also, folks, check out the 2004 Gleaner R65 Combine with 939 separator hours selling for Rick Nemeth out of Liddell, Kansas. Just another lineup of outstanding equipment selling on BigIron.com. All items sell to the highest bidder on June 9th.
The FFA Chapter Tribute is sponsored by Nationwide, the #1 farm insurer in the country. To register your FFA chapter, go to nationwidesupportsffa.com. That's nationwidesupportsffa.com. Nationwide. We stand for you.
Well, This Week in Agribusiness is proud to continue our salute to FFA. This week, we're getting to know Caitlin Kleibaker. Caitlin is the president of Missouri FFA. Caitlin, what prompted you to join FFA in the first place?
I have grown up on my family's farm ever since I was little, and I have had the opportunity to watch several generations of my family go through the FFA process and experience growth through that, and that inspired me to take that step as well.
That is fantastic. On the family farm, do you guys have livestock as well that you were able to use in your FFA projects?
Yes, we have a diversified crop and livestock operation.
That is fantastic. And now, of course, you have recently been elected to serve as Missouri State President. What prompted you to get into leadership with FFA?
So my freshman year of high school, I was extremely shy. If anybody tried talking to me, I would most likely make an excuse, walk away, and not come back. Until I was encouraged to participate in public speaking with FFA, which completely terrified me. But once I did it and saw it was possible to survive, I realized there was growth opportunity within the FFA organization and knew I had to take advantage of that.
That's fantastic, Caitlin. That's what FFA is there for. And now as you look ahead to this next year, you'll get to work with students across the state as state president.
Yes, that is definitely something that excites me, helping to be that inspiration and motivation that those students need to step out of their comfort zone and figure out what potential truly lies within them.
That is fantastic. And Caitlin, moving on to the University of Missouri next year to study animal science, we wish you the best.
Thank you.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Orion Samuelson.
I think we are making some progress. Here we are into the month of June, first official month of summer. Most of the crops across the country have been planted and most of them are up and doing well. And we're moving into the county and state fair season. But let me say what I've said before, if you're planning to go, and I hope you are, make sure you check with the county or state fair to make sure that it is going on as scheduled. And then besides that, we come into a season of farmer markets. Do you know that we have a farmers market in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and we have farmers markets in towns and cities throughout the country. And if, again, you're planning to go, and it's a great opportunity to figure out where your food is coming from, to meet the farmers in your community who are making it happen, and able to buy some very fresh produce. Lots of good things happening. But again, let's work to make sure they continue, because I'm continuing to get mail from people who say, I'm not getting a vaccine because it's a government plot to cull the population. Come on, friends, read the news and pay attention to what's happening and do your part to keep COVID-19 from spreading by following the rules of the health officials across the country. That's my good wishes for you as we make it into the summertime and enjoy, but learn more about farmers and the people who produce our food. Stay well, stay safe. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
Well, for folks who love vintage farm machinery, 2020 was a slow year with the cancellation of most events. 2021, however, most of those events are coming back, including the Half Century of Progress. Max has more.
We sure are anticipating the Half Century of Progress show coming up later on this summer. It'll be the end of August at Rantoul, Illinois. And a fellow who knows that show very well, who has attended several of them, Brian Newcombe, joins us from Illini FS, part of the Growmark cooperative system. And Growmark is a diamond sponsor of the Half Century of Progress this year, helping make a lot of things possible at that show. Brian, you guys had a pretty good spring planting season. How's the work going in your area?
Well, we sure have had a good spring season, Max. And depending on where you're at, some guys are a little bit more behind than others. But right now we really got a good hold on things. Crop is looking really well. Guys are doing some post spraying now and some side dressing of nitrogen. But overall, everything looks real well.
You work in the energy area, I know, and there are always so many gyrations with world developments and pipeline challenges, and many of us are concerned about just getting anything we need right now. Are you offering any guidance to your customers about lubricants, for example?
Yeah, right now we are starting to see a little bit of backing off on supply. Supply is becoming a little bit more plentiful in the terms of base oils and additives. So, but we do want our customers to know that, it's probably a good idea to keep full on their bulk oil and other lubricant products, but we are seeing a little bit of relief on that right now.
You help make so much possible at the Half Century of Progress. You folks at Align IFS and the Growmark system. One of those things is the tractor pull, and that is such a joyous event every year. People really look forward to it at the end of the day.
Oh, they sure do. That's really the topper. That's the cherry on top, they would say, to be able to go out and sit and relax, enjoy the tractors going up and down the track. And as a tractor pull announcer, yeah, I'm a little partial to that as well, but it sure is a lot of fun.
It's a great family event, too, because I've seen you there with your kids.
Yes, my daughters went with me 2 years ago in 2019, and they've already talked about it, and going to bring them again this summer. Going to have a good time.
We'll see you at Rantoul in a few weeks, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Max. Thanks for having me on today.
Brian Newcombe with Align IFS, part of the Growmark system, one of the sponsors of the Half Century of Progress. Yes, it's on. It'll be August 26th through the 29th at Rantoul, Illinois.
Thank you, Max. It is exciting to look at all the opportunities to get together with other farmers coming this summer. World Pork Expo next week, Farm Futures Summit the week after that. Later on this summer, of course, Half Century of Progress and Farm Progress Show and Husker Harvest Days all coming up in 2021. Folks, we appreciate you staying with us. We'll be back next week on This Week in Agribusiness. Stay safe, everybody.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.